Yeah, so as you know by now, two major drivers of species decline in Australia are due to changes in fire regimes and predation by foxes and feral cats. Even though native mammals have evolved with fire, changes to fire regimes, particularly fire intensity and frequency, have long-term impacts on vegetation structure and complexity. Introduced predators, which are foxes and cats, are thought to have caused a severe reduction in population of many threatened species, which mainly include critical weight range mammals, reptiles, and ground nesting birds. So a loss of understory cover after fire usually enables existing predators to hunt more effectively, resulting in concerns that fire and invasive predators could have combined negative effects. And there are a lot of studies showing how foxes and cats spend extended periods of time in a recently burned area. And there are also studies showing how their diets change around fire. So foxes are present pretty much all across Victoria. You can find them in forests, you can find them in open plains and in deserts. Fox control using baiting is one of the most commonly used methods to control them on a landscape scale, and the main objective being protecting native mammals from predation. So fox baiting has shown that they reduce fox numbers to some extent, but they don't necessarily eradicate fox populations. So because we know that predation is more significant around fire, it is important to know if native mammals respond better to fire and fox-baited landscapes. Fire and predator management are often managed separately, even though they happen on the same piece of land or in the same area. So looking at this research question will help inform integrated fire management and fox control approaches so that we can design more efficient strategies for native mammal conservation. A personal benefit from reduced fox numbers is that they pay less on my stakes. So my study design is before-after control impact, which essentially means that I'll be doing surveys before and after fire across baited and unbaited landscapes. So I'm more or less talking about control burns because they are a bit more easier to follow through. My survey usually goes on for 30 days or roughly 2 months. And so far I've done 8 burn blocks. And this includes a couple of previous studies done in the similar areas as well. I'll be using a single species multi-season occupancy modeling, which essentially means that I'll be looking at a species across 2 different seasons, which are pre and post fire. So I have 2 different study regions. One is the Otways and the other one is Glenelg. I'll be looking at foxes and cats and also medium-sized native mammals, which are bandicoots, pots, and possums and echidnas. I've done a bunch of blogs around Glenelg, and in the Otways, these are the blogs that we surveyed pre-fire, but not all of them had fire. So far, I've surveyed Currawong Falls, Jellybrand, and Peppermint. And a lot of the blocks that I survey are usually a few hundred hectares. Looking at some preliminary results, we see that with foxes, baiting doesn't seem to have much effect pre-fire, but post-fire, you see that the numbers go up in unbaited landscapes, even though it's not a significant increase compared to baited landscapes. With cats, you see that it's the same, that baiting doesn't have much effect pre-fire, but cat responses post-fire is almost double across baited landscapes, and this could possibly be related to reduced presence of foxes. With native mammals, ringtail possums had no effect from baiting, so the numbers do go down post-fire, but baiting doesn't seem to have much impact on their occupancies. And with brush-tailed possums, you see that they respond better in fox-baited landscapes, so the numbers are slightly better pre and post fire across baited landscapes. With echidnas, the massive drop in occupancy post-fire could be due to the fact that they go under hibernation, and often these post-fire surveys happen during winter seasons. So my study started off with the main aim of looking at bandicoots and potoroos, but a lot of the burn blocks that I have surveyed so far didn't have enough numbers to start with, but I'm hoping that by the end of this year, I'll have better numbers to look at and see if baiting is actually helping bandicoots and pots. So far we see that baiting does have some effect on foxes, but it's not a significant decrease in foxes across baited landscapes. You also see that cats are responding more in fox baited landscapes, and native mammal responses are not fully clear at this point, but hopefully by the end of this year, I'll have more data to look at. With this in mind, I'm also thinking of looking at two related questions. We know that understory vegetation is often quite crucial in survival of medium and small sized mammals, particularly around fire. So I aim to look at how fire severity, proximity to burnt or unburnt patches, and vegetation structure across different height classes affects the responses of invasive predators and medium-sized native mammals to fire. We also saw that cats increase their activity across fox-baited landscapes after fire. So there could actually be an interaction between foxes and feral cats, and this is the other thing that I'm planning on looking at. I thank everyone who has helped me so far, and this includes CEC, my supervisors, Forest Fire Management, and everyone at Parks Vic and Delp. Thank you.
Thanks, Vishnu. If you could stop sharing your screen, that would be great.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Mel Call. Is the baiting targeted around fire areas, or is it just part of the landscape scale baiting program?
Yeah, baiting and fire are quite different. So baiting is just part of the landscape, and I'm looking at controlled burns that happen within this landscape.
There's probably very few, maybe to add to that answer too, for Mel, there's probably very, very few examples where there's targeted or localized predator control around burn blocks. It's one of the reasons we're having to think quite hard about how we'll do it, because we haven't got a lot of precedents. There aren't any other questions for you, Vishnu. So, oh, there is one. Is there any evidence of increased predation by native predators such as quolls or raptors?
So I don't think we have found any quolls over the last 10 years or so in the Otways. There is another PhD student looking at raptors and reptiles around fire and predation, but it often seems the other way, that foxes and cats kill reptiles. And yeah, birds do increase their activity after fire, but it tends to be more opportunistic rather than planned predation.
Yeah, thanks, Vishnu. And I think it was either 2014 or 2015 when we got the last verified record of a spotted tail quoll in the Otways. And I couldn't speak to Glenelg, but I think it's probably longer than that.
Yeah.
Raptors is difficult to get much evidence on, really, with the methodologies that all of us tend to be using. But good. All right, you're off the hook, mate. Well done. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it, Vishnu, and good luck with the rest of your PhD.
Thank you.